Hello and welcome to TeikaTV, episode 18. My name is Robbie Hill and I will be your host. I'm lucky to be joined by two of our Teikametrics experts, Charles and Gauri.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining.
So please drop in a comment. Let us know where you're tuning in from today. We are tuning in from our headquarters here in Boston, Massachusetts. And
it's a very gray, cloudy day here in Boston.
And it's a very gray day indeed. So we're excited to dive into the topic of driving sales volume. Last week, I was behind the camera as I provide the video content here for some of our educational resources and help tell our story, our Teikametrics journey, if you will, as we continue to help sellers, give them the tools to succeed. So, yeah, thrilled to be here. This week we're going to be covering what we talked about last week briefly. So, last week we hit on some great ways to measure sponsored product success. We talked about CTR, conversion rate, and our average cost of sale. And this week we're going to be hitting on the specifics of driving sales volume. So, first up, we'll be talking about your product listings and how those can be optimized to drive greater sales volume. Then we'll hit on the different bidding strategies that we have. And so what we'd like to do first here is some in the news. So hope everyone had an awesome Valentine's Day, as Amazon does or is new this year. The two hour delivery for flowers. So hope you guys.
Robbie's been dropping hints all week, but no one picked them up. I'm sorry, Robbie.
Yeah. So I hope you guys had a little bit less lonely. Hope you guys got some flowers delivered. That was a fun deal Amazon put together. And some other news this week was some articles around Amazon getting into the medical space. So we'll be competing, in distribution of medical equipment.
Yeah, it was really interesting. It seems like they've been having a lot of healthcare big shots visiting their offices in Seattle, meeting with them there. So it seems like Amazon is gearing to enter that space as a B2B seller, essentially selling directly to hospitals from Amazon.
Yeah, that's right. It's pretty amazing to watch Amazon grow from, selling clothes to groceries and now getting into the medical space as well. A lot of momentum. It's pretty incredible. So let's see, we got some comments in from Greg. Great to have you joining, Greg. Eric from Southern California, welcome.
Jealous.
It's probably warmer down there. Right?
And Israel, great to have some international viewers this week. So yeah, one other thing in the news, we talk about this fairly recently a lot, but there's a lot of momentum around Amazon. Almost $180 billion in sales up there competing with some major tech titans. And if this momentum continues, they could be the first $1 trillion.
That would be amazing.
$1 trillion company in sales. So
yeah.
I think that's pretty incredible. And it really becomes, who do you guys think is going to be the first sort of company to reach that?
I think the other contenders, because I think Microsoft's up there, Google, they would have to do,
as well.
Yeah, they would have to make some pretty big moves to catch up to where Amazon is and to gain the kind of momentum that Amazon has, just racking up sales and expanding and always adding on new ventures.
Certainly, yeah. So what do you guys think? It'd be great to hear, I mean, these tech titans competing. I would wager to say Amazon has the most momentum, and it would be interesting to think past 1 trillion if they could keep this up and almost get to 2 trillion.
Which, I mean, the difference between 1 and 2 trillion is kind of immaterial to me because I can't even fathom them as numbers. So whether they hit 1 trillion or 2 trillion, it'll be momentous either way.
Yeah, so great. Yeah, definitely drop in a comment as we go through. We're going to dive into some of the content on driving sales volume this week. And as we go through this, we like to keep this interactive. Please do drop in any comments that you have questions around or slow us down to see how we can help. So Brandon's dropping in a comment, if they keep raising our fees, they'll get there in no time. Yes.
Good one.
So, okay, so first, let's dive into the first content point around increasing the sales volume. So I think the best way to drive sale volume is just to start by using sponsored products, to start advertising. And I think once you've done that, that's the first and foremost off the bat, the best way to get started doing that. But when you get more tactical and you are using sponsored products, what do you guys think? What's the most valuable resource you're looking for when optimizing your product pages to increase sales?
Well, I will definitely look first at the search term report, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the search term report is invaluable. It's really the only way for you to get search data from Amazon because you're not going to get it for organic searches or sales. So the only way for you to find out how people are encountering your products and landing on your listing page is going to be through the search term report. If you're unfamiliar, the search term report lives in Seller Central and under your reports tab under advertising reports, and it's going to show you exactly what a customer put into the search box to find your ad and then to click on it.
Yeah, so letting Amazon do the sort of heavy lifting there and doing that work for you in the search terms.
Yeah,
exactly.
And you, it's sort of what we call the flywheel effect here because they kind of feed into each other, but you can use your search term report to optimize your listings, whether it's on page or on the back end. But conversely, providing more data on the back end helps you better place for results. So you want to make sure you fill out all of those fields, as much data as possible that you can provide to Amazon. The better Amazon's algorithms are going to place your ads and searches.
Yeah, it's a very resourceful, definitely. A search term report is a very resourceful way for you to increase your business on Amazon. That's definitely.
Yeah. Is there any field specifically on the back end that we're looking to fill out there?
So you definitely want to provide data in the search term field, but there are additional attributes like potential uses, who it's most relevant to, all of this kind of information that you can give Amazon on the back end of your listing, which will help them increase relevancy and more factors for them to consider when they're placing your searches.
Yeah, so let's drill down on this just a little bit more and talk about what's the difference between a search term and a keyword?
Sure.
So basically, the search term is what a potential customer on Amazon is using to look for your products. And then the keywords are basically the terms on which you decided to bid to make sure that you're attracting the right traffic on your ads and products.
And you can get that from your search term report. You're going to look at that data that you've gathered from your automatic campaigns and see which customer search terms are turning up the most.
Yeah, so this feeds into your campaign structure. So what we recommend doing as a best practice, and this is whether or not you use our product, this is how your campaign should be set up, is to have a mirrored campaign structure. So you want to have an automatic and then you want to have a manual. So start with your automatic, see what searches you can gather, what data you can gather, and then based on what you see there, you set up your manual and put in the right keywords that you start targeting better and start doubling down on.
Yeah, so we want to get you guys on the call today, engaged. So let's think about this. If you have used your search term report before, you've looked at one of your top converting customer search terms and added it in as a keyword. Drop a 1 in the comments if you've done that. And if you haven't done that before, curious to see how many people haven't been utilizing that practice. So a 1 if you have and a 0 if you haven't.
And I'd also be curious to know if we're using both types of campaigns. If you're using both, let us know. If you're using one and not the other, I'd really be curious to know what the case is there, because there are instances where maybe an automatic campaign will suffice, and I'd be curious to know if people aren't using mirror structure, why that is.
Yeah, just like Gauri said earlier, we highly recommend that Teikametrics always have that mirror campaign structure, like using that automatic campaign to harvest, explore lots of data one more time. That will help you definitely find the right keywords to optimize your manual campaigns.
Yeah, so see a lot of 1s coming in. Both. Brandon is in that boat. Yeah, a couple. So great. Thanks so much. And in the vein of a mirrored campaign structure, let's just dive into that, drill down on that. What is the difference between an automatic campaign and a manual campaign? And speaking about mirrored campaign structures, how can we use them together in tandem?
Yeah, so basically, when you create an automatic campaign, you want to make sure that you have the corresponding mirror manual campaign to this one. So basically with the same ad groups and the same SKUs within each ad group. And this way, one more time, we will be able to use the automatic campaign to explore lots of data, find what's working best for you, and then potentially move new keywords into your manual campaign.
Yep, and that's why it's important to have them structured the exact same, so there's no confusion about where you're pulling data from and where you're dropping it back in.
Awesome. So let's jump into our second point. I think I got a little static on my microphone. So
Robbie's just really excited to be on TeikaTV for the first time.
yeah, making an appearance with a little bit of static.
People wanted Robbie, and here he is.
Luckily, I know the technical thing, so hopefully that's a little bit better. So let's dive into our second point, and that's all around the keywords. So once we've set up those manual campaigns and we're using a mirroring structure, it's common to think, oh, should I be bidding on the keywords that are most common to my product, or what's the best way to approach that? Should I be bidding highly on keywords that are closely related to my product and spending my money there?
Yeah, so that's actually the kind of question I get pretty often here. So just like Robbie said earlier, I'm part of the customer success team, and I'm here to help our customers, but also you guys with any question you can have today. And the thing is here, the thing is when you want to make sure that you catching this traffic and like increasing your sales, you want to make sure that you're bidding on the right keywords. And those keywords might not be the ones you think describe the best your product, but by using one more time these mirror campaigns, we will gather data and we will see exactly which keywords are actually driving sales to you. And those keywords then that we can call best contributing or best converting keywords, those are the ones you can use in your listing description, right, Gauri?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important to define what a best keyword is. So based on your objective of driving sales, your best keyword should be the one that's giving you the most dollars back.
Yeah.
Versus if your goal was efficiency and the lowest ACoS, your best keyword would be the one with the lowest ACoS. So you need to know what your objective is before you can even define what your best keyword would be in that situation.
Yeah, so hello to Elmo. Thanks for joining. Welcome. And if you're just joining us now, we're diving deep into driving sales volume this week. And I'm sorry to hear about the static. Gauri, why don't you pull your hair? I think that's one contributing factor to static I've seen in TeikaTV in weeks past. So
I tell you, Robbie, we need hairstylists on staff.
As we evolve and continue to make the SP optimizer as best it can be, I'm sure we will add that. So yeah, moving right along, talking about investing in what works. Using those top performing keywords, and not only just investing in what keywords are right for your product, but what's really performing and what does the data say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Exactly. That's everything is about data when you want to be competitive on Amazon. I mean, the competition is very fierce out there, so everything is about data. One more time, it can be difficult and take a long time to go through your search term report on Amazon, and that's actually why it's always a good idea to try to use some software that are out there, just like ours, for example, that can help you gather that data and also select the right and performing ones for you.
Yeah, you gotta love data. So, it can be great to have software, go through those large search term reports and make it a little bit easier to consolidate that data, view it, organize it, and make decisions. But if you don't have software that is doing that process, and you are in those big Excel files, mm-hmm. Gauri, what are some of the things that you do as sort of best practice?
Sure. If I don't have at least 5 Excel files open at one time, I feel a little lost in life. But if I'm working with the search term report in particular, the best way to whittle your data down to the most relevant pieces is to put a few filters on it. So what I would do in this instance is I would take away any competitor ASINs from the search term report. I would take away any searches that haven't resulted in sales for me, so anything that has 0 conversions, I would take off the list. And then I would look at the dollar amount generated in the sales column, and start to target those ones that have the highest dollar amounts in there.
And as you can tell, doing that manually can take a long time, actually.
Yeah, I've done it both ways. I've used manual Excels using Amazon reporting, and I've used our software to do it. From a time perspective, there's really no debate. Of course, doing anything manually is going to be much more labor intensive and take a much longer time.
Great, yeah, so if you guys have any questions for us, be sure to drop them in the comments. And I think one thing that we get asked a lot is, where do you start, right? So what's the best place to start your bidding, do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, we have also like the suggested bid given by Amazon, so maybe something Gauri can explain a little bit.
Yeah, like how do they calculate that?
Sure. This actually be a good time. If you guys use suggested bids, let us know, or let us know what your preferred methodology is for your starting bids. But if suggested bid is the route that you're taking, just a little bit of background on that, that's basically Amazon telling you what bids have won for similar ads in similar product category in the past. So there'll usually be a suggested bid amount, and then there'll be a bid range right below that, and the suggested bid tends to fall somewhere in the midpoint of that range. So usually the lowest bid amount is one that got impressions, but it was a lower number of impressions versus the one that's the highest. So you could think of it as, placement. So the higher bids usually will place you on page 1 or page 2. So when you're using those suggested bids, you need to understand what you're comfortable spending. So you can't blindly apply that because it might be too expensive for you, particularly if you're trying to launch in a saturated category. And budget is tight, you have limited capital, then maxing out on the suggested bid might not be a sustainable strategy for you.
Yeah, I mean, and just like you said, Robbie, that's a good way to start working on that. But then, of course, if you're using any of those software out there that can help you optimize your campaigns and also automate your bids, start with the suggested bid, but then trust the process, I will say.
Yeah, so I guess the next step in this process, to really driving more sales volume specific to using sponsored products would be adjusting your bids, right, for each keyword.
Yeah.
So when thinking about adjusting your bid, why is it so important to do that continuously?
So the main reason to do that is because Amazon is a dynamic marketplace. There are always new shoppers coming on there, there are new competitors coming on there, and you're not going to continuously get the same ROI at the same bid. As more people start selling on Amazon, start adopting sponsored products, a bid of, say, 50 cents this time last year would probably have gotten you ROI a lot easier than it would today, just because you have to compete with so many other sellers and so many other searches. So it's important to make sure you're reacting to the marketplace. And then it's also important to make sure you're tuning your own bids for performance. So if a keyword stops performing for you, if it stops generating the same kind of revenue for you that it did 2 weeks ago, a month ago, then you should go back and reduce the bid and be willing to spend less on it, so you can reinvest that money into a better performing term.
Sure. And what if you're not? Let's think if you're not in there and you're not making those changes, like you said, what's that scenario look like, and what can you expect if you're not continuously making those bid adjustments?
Usually you're going to end up stagnating a little bit in performance. If you aren't divesting from the poor performers, reinvesting more in the better ones, then you're not going to change your results. You're not going to shift your spend or your revenue. So even if you can't do it every day, which can be a lot to do if you're doing manually, then you should consider establishing maybe a weekly cadence for manual bid changes and do it at least that frequently, to make sure your bids aren't stale and that you're reacting to changes.
Yeah, I mean, one more time here, we want to help you guys drive your sales volume, so that's really important to keep track of what's happening with your different keywords and your bids, and make sure that you stay on top of it, make some changes, some adjustments, and make it work, yeah.
So do you think, with the sellers that you work with, how often are you telling them to adjust their bids, or is there a cadence?
I think this goes with Lewis's question as well about how often can you adjust bids.
Lewis,
you read our mind.
Read my mind indeed. So that is a great question. What's the cadence there, and how often should we expect to adjust our bids?
Should be once a day, right, Gauri?
Yeah, so ideally you want to adjust it daily, or at least you want to review your bids every day and then make changes where necessary. At the very least, you should be doing this on a weekly basis. If you're doing it manually and daily is too much of a time commitment, then from a realistic perspective, at least weekly.
Yeah, well, one more time, the competition is really fierce on Amazon. So when you're using, for example, like a software like taking care of that for you, those software like do that at least like, I mean, they do that daily. We automate that daily for you.
Yep.
Yeah, so thinking about the different types of match types that there are within the keywords, do you bid differently, or should we be thinking of different ways of bidding for the different match types that there are?
That's a really interesting question, and one that we encounter quite frequently, right, Charles? I've seen it come up a fair few times. So what should happen is your exact match keywords generally will be better converting for you. So because the conversion rate is better, the bid should be higher. So that's just a very basic way of thinking about it, but if the conversion rate is increasing on a keyword, your bid should be increasing proportionally as well. So usually a narrow match type has better conversions, so a narrow match type will have a higher bid as well.
Yep.
Sure. Looks like we got a question in from Mike. If you remove a keyword because of the lack of performance, how would you know to add it in the future given the dynamic nature of customer behavior? Yeah, great question.
Yeah.
That's a really good question, Mike. So if you remove it from your manual campaign, so based upon what type of keyword it was, so for instance, if I remove a phrase match keyword today, probably if I have that keyword or similar keyword in broad match, that broad match keyword will still capture a search term that I can later add in again as a phrase match keyword. Or the other place you're going to get this data back is going to be your automatic campaign. This is something you'll see quite often with seasonal searches. So if a lot of people right now, we're looking for Valentine's Day gifts, you would have seen a lot of those searches come through. You have it in your manual as a keyword. You decide for whatever reason to take it out of your manual. This time next year, your automatic campaign will again show you all of these Valentine's keywords that you'll add back into your manual, and they'll start running again.
Yeah, that's also actually when you can create some seasonal manual campaigns, right, Gauri, to make sure that you, for each important seasons for your products across the year, that you're using the right keywords, bidding on the right keywords. You can create those seasonal manual campaigns. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So that's a good way to do it, as well as to have a campaign dedicated to seasonality.
Yeah, one thing that we see is keywords that run at a very high ACOS or that aren't giving enough sales. What do we do with those typically, or what do you recommend doing with those sort of keywords? Yeah,
you have essentially three options with those kind of keywords. You can either negate the search term, you can pause the keyword, or you can change the bid on it. Negating the keyword, while it's an option, what that's going to do is completely eliminate the sales volume you're getting there, so you end up losing out on revenue. So what I suggest doing is playing with the bid first. So reduce the bid and see if you can get a better result. So potentially, at a $1 bid, you have a 60% ACOS, it's too high. At a 50-cent bid or 75 cents, you can still capture some of that sale, but it's at a much lower ACOS, so that's going to be your sweet spot. So you might sacrifice top-line revenue, but you're going to get better ROI. So that's the first thing I'd recommend doing, is changing your bids. And then if that doesn't give you results, then pausing is an option. But I would really only use pause if there's no sales being generated.
I see.
Looks like Elmo has got a question in here. In a product launch, is it wise to cast a wide net and use as many keywords as you can think of that are somewhat reasonable, and then start watching the results?
That's it's a really good question, Elmo. I wouldn't recommend doing a cast a wide net manual campaign where you just come up with keywords and add it in there. That's where you could use an automatic campaign instead. Yeah. And as Robbie was discussing earlier, this will make Amazon do the work for you and find the searches that are more relevant that you could then move into a manual campaign. What I would keep in mind with the product launch is I wouldn't get too focused on the ACOS necessarily. I would be more concerned with making sure I'm getting more impressions each day, getting more clicks each day to improve my product visibility.
Yeah, great question. And we have another question.
We have one down there from Jared, I think.
I see.
Yeah.
Jared wouldn't suggest daily. Tough to see the actual results delayed reporting. use a 14 or 30-day sunset of data to influence your bid adjustments.
Yeah. That's a really good point, Jared, and one that we didn't actually cover is what period of time you want to look at when making bid changes. So you are correct that you don't want to make daily bid changes if you're only looking at 1 day's worth of data. So that's not what we meant to imply, but thank you for bringing that point up, Jared, because even if you are adjusting daily, every day you want to look back at a 30-day window. So I would look back 30 days from today for today's adjustments, and same thing tomorrow. So I'm not going to just see what happened today versus tomorrow. Each time I'm going to look back at a 30-day window and make those changes.
Yeah, it's important to look at it in the 30-day context there.
Yeah.
So great point, thank you. Can I add a keyword after starting a campaign, or do I need to archive the campaign and start a new one?
I'm not sure about
yes,
this question.
you can. You can keep adding campaigns. You don't have to add them all at the start. So as you keep getting more data from your automatic, you can keep populating that manual with new keywords. So you're not confined to the first set of keywords you use at the time of campaign creation. You always have the option to add keywords into each ad group. You're just restricted by the number of keywords, which is 1,000 per ad group.
And just quickly want to jump on Louis' questions up there, like how often you should run automatic campaign. When we talk about that strategy of mirror campaigns earlier, it's actually important to always run this automatic campaign with your manual one to make sure that through the different seasons or like holidays of the year, you're catching and then using the right keywords in your manual campaign. So actually, we always recommend to keep running your automatic campaign as well.
Yeah, and one way you can sort of shift your spend is just by changing the budgets, which you'll probably see happen naturally anyway. As your manual campaign picks up steam, it's going to start spending more than your automatic.
Yeah, great questions, and keep them coming as we reach the top of the half hour here. We want to keep the conversation going, and I think one more piece to this driving sales volume concept is beyond sponsored product is enhanced brand content. Can those help improve search results?
Yeah, enhanced brand content is a really good tool. If you're brand registered, you should be taking advantage of this. It's how you can tell your brand story on Amazon. The interesting about enhanced brand content is the actual content on the page isn't always indexed, so it doesn't necessarily affect how people are searching for your product or how they're finding you through searches. But once they get to your page, that's what's going to sell your product. So product page conversion is extremely important, because it doesn't matter if you drive 100 people to your page if those people aren't buying your product. So use ads to drive people to your page, and then enhanced brand content can be a great way to improve your conversion rate once they get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. So yeah, I think enhanced brand content can be a great way, and I think the impact there of not having that indexing is really important.
Yep.
So it looks like we're just about at the top of the half hour. So what we like to do is just do a recap. Let's summarize the ways which we discuss of how you can use sponsored products to drive increased sales volume. So first it all starts with those product pages. The differences between auto and manual campaigns, leveraging the difference. Using those auto campaigns as a data mine. Let Amazon do the heavy lifting there.
Sure.
And then really get specific and use those manual campaigns to target the keywords that are working and drill down there. So using data is really the best way to get going from that respect. Sure. And then beyond that, it's the keyword considerations. Some of the most, I think the most common misconception there is, I have this keyword that's highly related to my product, but it isn't always the best performing keyword.
Also because it might be like a very competitive keyword.
Yeah.
That's important.
If it's a broad keyword in a competitive category, even though it describes your product, it maybe is your product, it might not necessarily be the best for you from a search term and keyword targeting perspective. Yeah,
and then finally, just the bid adjustments and why it's so important to be constantly refining your approach to different bidding keywords. And there's a really nice distinction that we had in this discussion today, looking at that over a 30-day time window and looking at data over time when you're looking at those bid adjustments.
Yeah, you don't want to be reactionary with your bid changes or any changes you're making to sponsored products. You always want to look back that 30-day window to make sure you're capturing trends rather than just random spikes.
True.
Yeah, great. So if it's Thursday, it is TeikaTV. We would love to hear from you guys what content you would like to see. Please let us know if there's any specific topics you'd like us to hit on. We would love to prepare a discussion.
Yeah, you guys can keep commenting on these videos. We'll always keep reviewing them. If you don't address your content live or you're not able to watch us live, we'll always look at the information there to inform future TeikaTVs.
Yeah, and we'll be here for you.
Yeah, and let's just jump on Eric's last question before signing off today. Can you please add an actual example on what keywords you would select and why?
Sure. So I guess he refers to the search term and why you will move this search term.
Why you would move a particular search term over?
I think so, right?
Yeah. In broad strokes, Eric, you would want to look at, for the purpose of driving sales volume, which we talked about today, you'd want to look at anything that's converted for you. Usually I say look for at least 2 conversions, or at least 2 orders from that same search term, so you establish a pattern. And that's one that's not a fluke, that's not a random occurrence. This is one that has a pattern of converting for you. If you put it into your manual, it should continue to do the same thing as a keyword as well.
Right.
Awesome. So yeah, we want to thank you guys for tuning in this week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
So thank you, and if it's Thursday, it's TeikaTV. So see you
Join
next
us next week.